something others would rather ignore. Someone's dead, and it's up to me to find out why. The phone rang at night. I'm used to getting calls when normal people are asleep. "Ray, this one's for you," said the voice on the other end. It was Donovan Green, a cop with tired eyes, buried too deep in red tape. "We've known each other for years." He didn't need to explain any details. I knew it was a murder. When I got to the address, an old house stood before me. "These buildings are dead, just like the people who used to live in them. They radiate nothing but memories, promising nothing good." I stepped inside and felt it immediately. Something was wrong. The staleness in the air was laced with death. A body lay on the floor. A man, dressed in a fine suit. His face seemed peaceful, but I knew he died in agony. The blood on the floor was almost dry. His name was Marcus Flynn, and he was clearly a key player in someone's plans. But those plans no longer mattered. Someone decided his time was up. I looked around. The killer left no trace. It was all done with precision. But there was still something. In cases like this, there's always a detail, a small piece even the most careful can miss. And that tiny clue led me here. Donovan followed me in. He always stayed quiet in situations like these. "You won't find who did this," he said, glancing at the body. He was right. The killer was buried deep, but I'm not one to give up. Donovan and I exchanged a few words before he left me alone with the dead. I stepped outside and lit a cigarette. The night hung thick and quiet in the air. This wasn't the kind of quiet that offers peace. It was the kind that weighs on you like a lead blanket. In these moments, you realize the city has a life of its own, indifferent to what happens to its people. To the city, we're just passing shadows. The next morning, I went to the corner bar, where you can always find people who know more than they're willing to say. That's where I found Sam Larkin. He was an old friend, a man who had left the dirty business behind but still had his ear to the ground. We sat at the bar, and I ordered whiskey. "Flynn wasn't just some businessman, Ray," Sam said, staring into his glass. "He played with people you don't mess with." I listened carefully. Larkin was always a master of vague hints. The more I read, the clearer it became that this wasn't as simple as it seemed. Flynn had connections, and those connections led to people no one talked about openly. His business was profitable, but the price was too high. Everyone who got tangled in their web was doomed to something worse than death. I found a name. The company Flynn dealt with played by their own rules. And those rules were simple: you're either with them, or you disappear. I knew I was about to cross paths with someone who didn't like being watched. A few days passed before I realized I was being followed. That always happens when you get too close to the truth. Someone was behind me, and I didn't know who. Maybe it was just a passerby, or maybe it was one of those who didn't want me to know more. I decided to return to the crime scene. Sometimes the answers are hidden where you least expect them. When I arrived, the room was empty, but I could tell immediately that someone had been there before me. The silence was too heavy. I could feel the trap, but it was already too late. A man stood in the corner. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold as death. It was Victor Ryder, a man who never leaves a trace. "You've gone too deep, Blake," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I knew, in the next moment, everything would end. The gunshot rang out like lightning. I didn't have time to react. The bullet tore into my shoulder, and I felt the strength leave my body. I collapsed, feeling the cold metal tear through my flesh. In that moment, everything became clear. The answers I sought were too dangerous. But they were right there, at my fingertips. I could hear the sirens in the distance. They were getting closer, but I knew it didn't matter anymore. I lay on the cold floor, my thoughts drifting into the void. I knew I wouldn't die that night, but the real question was, what had I done wrong? Victor Ryder hadn't given me a chance. He was a predator, and I had become his prey. In this city, you're either the hunter or the hunted. And tonight, I lost. But who said this was the end? It was just part of a game I had gotten involved in long ago. I lay there, thinking. Maybe I should have ignored the call. Maybe I should have just stayed in bed when the phone rang in the middle of the night. But who would I be then? Just another man too scared to chase the truth? No. That's not me. Even now, as life slowly seeps out of my body, I know I'll keep searching for answers, even if they lead me straight into the heart of darkness. And in this city, full of shadows, I'm still the one who searches for light, no matter how far away it seems.